Aloha, how's it? Today we're talking all about how we can start getting more leads using LinkedIn, the mango way, of course, and more on that in a minute. So, how was your weekend here on the North Shore of Oahu? We're at like the epicenter of professional surfing. So, over the next couple of months, there's going to be a lot of competitions. We have a lot of professional surfers here. And Friday, the Haleiwa Challenger competition kicked off because the surf was up and some of the locals really shined. So it was super fun. There were like cars parked all the way down our street to go watch the competition, and it was just day one. Today is day two, so it's happening right now. And my husband's already popped down and got me some video footage of the competition. So the thing about the North Shore of Oahu, if you've never been here, the entire community and culture revolves around the ocean and what's happening in the ocean. And there's something that's just really magical, a little bit powerful, intoxicating, and it heavily influences the way we all live here. So, a little taste of the North Shore and what it's happening this week. And now it's time for Mondays with Mindy. This is a weekly show at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, where I talk about all things LinkedIn pipeline, promo, and profiles, what I like to call the three P's of LinkedIn. So, do you have questions about LinkedIn that you want me to answer? Please post them below. Be sure to like this post, whether you're watching live or from the replay. Leave your questions and I will answer them after the show or on a future episode of Mondays with Mindy. I love getting feedback because that tells me what you're interested in, where I can help. And sometimes I like to nerd out on these things too and do some troubleshooting. So let's get to today's topic. Why are you not getting enough inbound leads on LinkedIn, even though you are doing everything right? So your profile rocks, your content resonates, your network is engaging with you. So why are you still not getting the leads that you expected? There are so many gurus that are emphasizing the importance of your personal brand, your inbound activity levels. And it's easy to expect that when you do all of the right things, that the doors are just going to open wide for you on LinkedIn. Just follow the steps, right? It should be that simple. But who doesn't love getting a message from a highly qualified lead inquiring about your services or programs? We all do. The thing is that inbound alone is not enough for most of us. If you're unfamiliar with the term inbound and outbound, inbound is when you are doing things like content marketing, your personal brand to attract people to you. Outbound is stuff that you are doing to reach out to people, like in one-to-one messages, you're thinking of sales conversations, these types of activities. So there's a difference between inbound and outbound. So without a solid outbound strategy, you're relying on the luck of the draw and people like magically discovering you on their own terms on LinkedIn. So if you're like many people who come to me to grow their business using LinkedIn, they feel like they do get some inbound leads that are good, but for some reason, it's not consistent, it's not predictable. So that's really where the issue happens. It's like, okay, this is great, but how do I get more of this? How can I predict what is going to happen for me on LinkedIn? How fast can I grow using LinkedIn? So we are going to go a little bit deeper in just a moment. And aloha, for those who don't know me, my name is Mindy Rosser. I am the founder of Mindy Rosser Marketing, and I have a group program called the LinkedIn Accelerator for those who want to go from 0 to 60 on LinkedIn with their profile and their network. So I will share the link at the end of this live if you're interested and want to get on the wait list. I'll also put it in the comments. I help superstars who feel they are the best kept secret in their industry to become that go-to visible expert in their niche so they can get that next opportunity, grow their business, and scale their impact all using LinkedIn. So in this live, we are going to talk about why betting on popularity and influence on LinkedIn to grow your business is causing you to create an unpredictable sales pipeline and what you can do now to get more highly qualified leads the mango way. Are you ready? Let's do this. This is a really fun topic for me. So go ahead and like this post, whether you're live, watching from the replay, give it some social love. All right. So one mistake that I see a lot of people make when they start on LinkedIn is they have this intention to grow their business and they are told and get sucked into believing that personal branding and content marketing are the only things they need to do to grow their business on LinkedIn. Okay. So they hear like, okay, LinkedIn is great. All I need to do is I need to go there. I need to update my profile. I need to start posting content. Now, that can work on a lot of other social channels. LinkedIn is different. There's this misconception that creating that irresistible LinkedIn profile and sharing content that speaks directly to your target market is the missing piece to get people into conversations and get them to reach out to you and inquire about your services or your programs. I totally get it because I do teach how to create an epic LinkedIn profile that gets the right people's attention. I have an entire process for every single section of the profile inside my program called the LinkedIn Accelerator. But unlike your careerist counterparts who are in that 9 to 5 grind, maybe they're a subject matter expert for a company. All they need to do is look good, and the headhunters and HR teams start beating down their door with opportunities. All they need is the right keywords and the right message, and they're off to the races. They don't really have to do too much outbound. But you, as a business leader or an entrepreneur, you cannot stop with just a LinkedIn profile if you are trying to get more leads. Then you say, Mindy, but why does so and so in my space claim they are getting a ton of business from LinkedIn and they never once mention that they're doing messaging or reaching out? It looks like they're just getting a bunch of people from their content and things that they're sharing on LinkedIn. They look really popular. So, first of all, we often compare ourselves to people who are a lot more experienced on LinkedIn than we are and also have a massive network, thousands of engaged followers. So, if you are doing that, if you're comparing yourself to people that are a lot further along in their business than you are, they do different things than we do to get the type of business growth that they are after. So they actually may be getting enough inbound traffic because their following is established. They've been around a long time. They already built the foundation necessary to attract those inbound leads. So think about when I think in terms of people that have a very strong inbound following, I think of people like Brene Brown, Amy Porterfield, Glennon Doyle, James Wedmore. These people have been around for well over a decade. So they likely aren't checking their LinkedIn messages, and the bulk of their business is coming from inbound. With list sizes in the tens and hundreds of thousands of people, you don't have to do as much outbound. So if you're comparing yourself to those people, that is not good unless you have an email list size that big. Then go ahead. They are your counterparts. On the other hand, you may be comparing yourself to people who do seem a bit closer in network size and experience. But have you considered that they may be doing a lot more messaging on LinkedIn than you think? So they may be reaching out to people. You just cannot see it because you don't live inside their LinkedIn inbox. And it's not something that people often talk about. How many people sit around and have conversations about the number of people that they have reached out to in their LinkedIn messages and had sales conversations with? Not that many that I've come across. So if you're not getting enough business on LinkedIn, it's time to let go of this misconception that all you need is an irresistible personal brand and regularly posting great content. Those two things have got to go. You've got to find another way to grow your business. So, I recently brought on a new client who is literally the best at what he does in his niche as an attorney. If you want the most aggressive, tenacious attorney who will fight for you, he is your person. On the flip side, he actually cares more than you might expect about the well being of his clients and their futures. So, like there's this aggressive side that he's going to fight for you, but that's because he cares so deeply. So, we started working together because there was something missing when it came to building predictability into his LinkedIn pipeline. Tell me if this sounds familiar. He's had LinkedIn connections that have led to conversations over coffee that resulted in buku dollars of referrals and new business for him. But he's also wasted a ton of time accepting connections from people who were not a good fit and just tried to sell him something. Okay, raise your hand. We've all been there. We've all felt that. We've been on the receiving end of those really horribly written connection invitations. So, what is the problem? He relied purely on inbound to fill his pipeline. So it is going to be unpredictable for him at this level because he does not have a massive following. He doesn't need a massive following for his business pipe. So what he needs is he needs this blend of outbound and inbound. So he expected his reputation in the industry to precede him. He thought his well-written LinkedIn content and other referrals would simply come to him because of who he is, the message he's putting out there. Shouldn't, the whole philosophy around build it and they will come. Doesn't always apply in the ways that we think on LinkedIn. So when he realized it wasn't happening at the level he wanted, he had to figure out a different approach because his time is too valuable to be trying a bunch of different tactics and not getting a predictable return on his investment into LinkedIn. So, what do you think was missing from his approach? In context of what we've been talking about today, you likely guessed the problem that needs solving in this situation. He'd only been doing out inbound and needs a balance of that outbound to get the results he wants in that range of having a few or more calls every month with his ideal referral partners. So if calls is what you want, you better be spending some time in your LinkedIn messages. And we talked a lot about this last week. So if you're curious, like, oh, well, what do I do in my LinkedIn messages? Look at my live from last week. We talked all about getting started with conversations on LinkedIn. That's really a good episode to watch around messaging in particular. So, if you followed me for any length of time, you might have heard me reference doing something the mango way. Yes, that is a mango tree out there. That's because I believe that there's always a better way to do LinkedIn than what we are typically seeing most people doing. If they're zigging, we're zagging. Okay, so let's talk about the most important things, how we're going to zag on LinkedIn when it comes to our outbound approach. As you're mapping out your LinkedIn strategy for outbound, and you want to get more leads on LinkedIn, I want to give you some things to be thinking about. Okay. So, first thing to think about is you need to know who your target audiences are. Now, you may say, Mindy, I know who they are. Okay. I want you to think deeply. Sometimes we assume we know who our target audiences are until we actually decide to go outbound. So, at this point, we have to get granular with figuring out how they self identify on LinkedIn and telltale signs that they are a fit for us. So, a way to get started with this is if you are doing any type of content marketing on LinkedIn, and maybe you're getting some responses or engagement, I want you to look at who is engaging with your content now. What are some of the similarities? What are some of the traits? Do they have similar job titles, similar functions? Do they think a certain way? And this is going to help you with figuring out how to identify them on LinkedIn. If you are not a brand new business or pivoting your offerings, then the simple way to figuring out who your target audiences are on LinkedIn is to reverse engineer your customer base. So, who are your customers now? Who's already doing business with you? If you're happy with them, these are your target customers. You just want more of them. So, what you're going to do is you're going to really think about the different things that make them unique and what you can actually search for from your customer avatar that you can search for on LinkedIn. Because if you cannot search for it on LinkedIn, it's not going to be super helpful for you. So that brings us to the second point. You need to be able to find your target audiences on LinkedIn. This is where it gets a bit trickier, especially if you are not really familiar with LinkedIn Sales Navigator, running searches, Boolean searches. I say that word and a lot of people start cringing, like, oh, what is that? So if you've never done this before, realize that it can get very complex. Like there are some really amazing, incredible searches that you can run on LinkedIn, but you can also do it the simple way. Okay. So most of us don't have a sales background. So searching for our people as individuals on LinkedIn rather than waiting for them to magically appear as they do with content marketing, it can be a little bit uncomfortable at the beginning. And you may feel a little weird, like trying to figure out, I don't know, like how do I actually find them? I'm going to try to run some searches based on titles and maybe location, but I'm not exactly sure if they are the right people for me. So what I would recommend you do is just take your first shot at researching 5 to 10 of them. Run a very simple search on LinkedIn. You can do that in the search bar. Just search for titles, locations, maybe a couple other things that you can think of. Even if you don't have a Sales Navigator account, you can run a very simple search. If you're looking for, like, Mindy, okay, that's too complicated. I don't want to do that. Let me give you another really cool tip. If you're looking for a simple way to get started, I would recommend looking inside some of the groups you're a part of, or some associations, some memberships. And if there are people that you'd want to do business with inside of that group, likely there are, or someone who could refer you to people who'd make good customers for you, this is a great place to start. So you want to get connected to the people that are in those associations, in those groups on LinkedIn. So let me give you an example. I'm in a number of like entrepreneurial go-getter business groups, and there are people inside these groups that are some great referral partners or people I might want to hire or do business with in the future. So, what I do is I use those groups, I look at the list of names in those groups, and I get connected with them on LinkedIn. And then I strike up a conversation around that group, something that's happening in that group, something I'm paying attention to. It's a very simple, natural way to number one, grow my network. Number two, get into sales conversations. And number three, make a new friend. So there are some beautiful ways to go about finding your target audiences on LinkedIn that don't require a sales navigator account or complex Boolean searches. Okay. All right. So let's move on to number three. Now that you have figured out who your target audiences are, you know where you're going to start finding them. Now you need to think through how you're going to approach them. So, depending on your target audience, you must know what they would be most likely to respond to if they don't know you yet. So you kind of have to get into their heads a little bit. This is where a lot of people get tripped up because they want a shortcut. So what I see people doing is like, ooh, I'm going to Google best LinkedIn connection invitation, best LinkedIn connection template, and they go and find these templates and just say, oh, I'm just going to use this. And they start sending it to all these people on their list. The problem with those is that most of them are not well written, first of all, and they are likely not geared towards your target audience. You have to know your people before you can craft a message that actually works. And you must be able to get into their head to understand how they are processing your words. You have to think like them. You have to understand how they're going to respond. So that first message matters more than you think, and it sets the precedent for all of the communication after that point that either leads to a sale, a collaboration, a friendship, a professional partnership. Any connection that you have with that person moving forward, it starts with that first message. So you're telling me, Mindy, but I don't know. I don't know how they think. This is a new target audience for me. Then you are going to have to take your best guess and think through your approach. We are all human. We, we don't want to be sold to with the first time we meet somebody. We really want to get to know people. We want to build strong business partnerships. So there are a lot of ways to get creative about how to reach out to people. I will put a link to another live that I've done on like what to say and some really great connection invitation scripts that you can check out after this if you're really struggling and trying to find some getting started points. And I show some good examples there. But in a nutshell, how you approach people matters a lot, especially if you are prospecting. Do it wrong, and you're kind of going to end up on their blacklist, on their spammers list, and you will ruin that relationship. And things do not disappear on LinkedIn, especially once they accept a connection invitation that was poorly written. They're going to see it forever associated with your name. Okay. All right. So moving on to number 4. Okay. So now that you know who your target audience is, you know how to find them, you've thought through your approach. Now you're going to start reaching out. So once you start reaching out, you have to track your performance. And now, for those of you who say, Mindy, I don't like numbers, I'm sorry. You have to pay attention to numbers. Numbers are a part of business. Numbers are a part of everything. It's what helps us gauge success on LinkedIn. So you're going to track how many people that you're reaching out to are turning into leads. That's it in a nutshell. So you cannot improve what you are not measuring. And I've worked with a number of people that said, oh, yeah, I get a lot of business from LinkedIn. You ask them, okay, well, how many calls are you having per month? They say, I don't know. And they'll guess, and then they'll actually look at their calendar. And usually they tend to either really underestimate or usually they overestimate how many calls they're having per month. So we've all heard about setting performance goals, tracking our numbers, but it does take some setting up in a performance dashboard. My preference is using a good old-fashioned Google Sheet to ensure you are getting the results that you want. So I track a very simple set of numbers, and I'm going to share them with you here. You can come back to this later and write them down. So here are my most important things to track. Number 1 is number of connection invitations sent. It's really important to know how many you are sending out each week, each month, because then you can gauge how many you need to send to get the results that you want. So you're thinking of number of connection of invitations sent is at the top of your funnel, and then the people funnel down to leads at the bottom. You're also going to want to track the number of InMails that you send if you do have a premium account and you use InMails. Then you'll need to track the number of connections that are actually accepted. What is this telling you? This is telling you that your messaging is working or not working. If the number of connections accepted is really low, then you're thinking, I need to figure out a better way to reach out to my audience. Then you're going to want to track the percentage of connection invitations accepted. So what you're going to do is a connection of invitations sent, connections accepted. You're going to divide those and then figure out the percentage of people that are accepting your connection invitations. The good number to shoot for here, depending on the type, if you are reaching out to prospects, you're shooting for about 25%, maybe 35% of people accepting your connection invitation. That is a critical number. It really tells you if your messaging is resonating. Then, of course, you're going to want to track your number of calls booked. So how many calls are you booking from LinkedIn? How many of those calls are converting to a lead? Then how many of those leads are converting to a sale? So I know there are a lot of numbers in there, but that should get you started with figuring out, okay, what matters? What should I really be tracking? That I think is a total of 7 different numbers. So tracking those numbers will give you what you need to determine how much return of an investment you're getting on LinkedIn. Okay. So tracking performance for at least a couple of months is going to show you patterns, and that will help you determine if your outreach is performing to your expectations. So basically, what you're thinking about is how many connection invitations do I need to send to get into enough conversations to have enough leads to convert them to a sale. That's really what it's all about. And if you are not using LinkedIn in this way, you need to. It's like stop relying on inbound. It's not going to get you that predictable funnel. When you combine inbound and outbound, that is the powerhouse. Okay. So you'll adjust your outbound approach based on where you're falling short of your baseline numbers. Okay. So keep in mind that there is always a solution and a way to improve each and every metric that you're tracking. This is what I do when I'm working with people to hone their LinkedIn programs. It's like, okay, where are we falling short? Which metrics are not working so well? Where can we improve? Over months, you're going to create a predictable pipeline on LinkedIn because you are going to know exactly which metrics move the needle for you. You adjust only those metrics, and then you get the right flow of leads out the back. And I have done this over and over again with dozens of one-on-one clients, worked with a lot of other program members to get this dialed in. So can you have, one question again, can you have too many leads? Like, does that ever happen? You definitely can. And it does happen on LinkedIn. I nearly killed one of my clients 1 month because he had 37 booked calls. He was like, Mindy, you've got to stop. This is way too many. So start small and work your way up from there. Sometimes LinkedIn will work a lot better than you expect. So please do not go gung ho crazy on sending a bunch of connections and then feeling like your calendar is overwhelmed. It's a good problem to have, but you still want to be thoughtful. So, getting more leads on LinkedIn can be as predictable as you want it to be. It really is up to you. Like, how many leads do you want per month on LinkedIn? You can make that happen. It's all about creating a process that works for you and generates the results that you want. So, know who your target audiences are. Find your target audiences on LinkedIn, think through your approach, and then track your performance over time. Those 4 things will get you that predictable pipeline. All right, so that was a lot. I know we covered a lot of numbers, approaches, strategies. So, what additional questions do you have about getting leads on LinkedIn? Leave them below. I love answering questions. And you can also shoot me a private message if you don't want to share anything publicly. I am happy to answer them. So, if you are looking for that extra edge to get you started on the right path with LinkedIn, you want to get more leads, then you need to get on the wait list for the LinkedIn Accelerator. We are kicking off at the beginning of 2022 in January. It's going to be tailored to take you through all of the sections on your LinkedIn profile. We go through it in 5 days flat. It's a very short program, and you're off to the LinkedIn races. So if you're interested, here's the link to get on the wait list and find out a few more details. I am really excited to see you next week on Mondays with Mindy. Feel free to leave any questions or comments below, and my inbox is always open if you want to message me directly. Have a beautiful rest of the week. I will see you next Monday.